Hi, I'm Kenzie. Welcome back to my podcast. If you are just joining, welcome. Today we will be talking about my 14th Blue's Clues VHS, Playtime with Periwinkle. Yes, we are introducing a new character. This VHS includes Blue's big mystery and Periwinkle misses his friend. First, let's talk about Blue's big mystery. This episode starts out with Steve saying that something mysterious happened. He explains that he and Blue finished their toast and jelly. They were in the backyard playing a game of kick the ball. Blue kicked the ball pretty hard and it went right over a stone wall. Steve went to go get it. That's when he noticed something mysterious, something new, something different, something he had never seen before. It was some kind of fort. The thing was, Steve didn't know who built it. He asked Blue if she built it. Blue said no. So they looked around and wondered, who could the mystery builder be? Then Steve thought of something. The viewer was good at building stuff and comes over a lot. He asked if the viewer were the mystery builder. The viewer said no. The question was, who is the mystery builder? That's when Blue wanted to play Blue's Clues. Steve thought we could be like detectives who use clues to solve a mystery. Then the popcorn goes away, leaving behind its marks, which were the evidence. Side table drawer gives us the handy-dandy notebook so we could write down the clues to our mystery. Mr. Salt, with his detective hat, gets our attention and tells us that something mysterious was happening. Then he and Steve hear something coming from behind the door. It was a leaf. Steve wondered who could have left it. Mr. Salt thought that the mystery builder, which was a definite possibility. Steve asked where leaves really come from. The viewer says leaves come from trees. So Steve and the viewer went to find some trees. There were 3 trees to choose from. The apple trees, the maple trees, and the evergreen trees. The viewer thought that the leaf came from the maple trees. So we go to the maple trees. There were 3 more trees to choose from. The viewer thought that the leaf came from the tree with brown leaves. So we go there. There were yet 3 more trees to choose from. The viewer thought that the leaf came from the 3rd tree that not only has the same color, but the same shape. Way to use the evidence, am I right? Then some leaves blew away, revealing footprints. That's when the viewer spotted the first clue, which is footprints. Steve asked Blue if they were her footprints. Blue said no. Now Steve noticed the clue was like evidence. He asks what part of the body makes footprints. The viewer says feet. So the mystery builder must have feet. We didn't know the answer yet, but Steve thought that we could follow the footprints and find the feet that made them. So they do. Then Steve noticed Pail watering the plants. He asked the viewer if she could be the mystery builder. The viewer said no, because Pail doesn't have feet. Then Steve noticed Tickety Talk completing a puzzle. She had feet. Steve conducted a series of questions for Tickety. She agreed that she had feet and made footprints in the dirt. Then Steve compared the feet they found to the feet Tickety made. They did not match. So Tickety wasn't the mystery builder, but Steve thanked her for her cooperation. Then it's mail time. Mailbox had a mystery letter for Steve. It wasn't a letter from our friends. It was a leaf that looked just like the one we found. Then Shovel and Pail are heard. They were admiring the fort. It was growing. Well, actually what they meant was a roof was added to the fort, and it had leaves that looked like the one Steve was holding. The mystery builder had struck again. That's when the viewer spotted the second clue. The problem was Steve didn't see it. He and the viewer follow it to the house next door. They tried to find it, but they couldn't. The viewer did remember that the clue was on a tail. Steve wanted to draw it in his notebook, but he couldn't because he didn't even see it. That's when the viewer helped him. We told him it was curvy and skinny. After drawing the tail, Mr. Salt tells us to come see him. He thinks he spotted the mystery builder. He tried to take some pictures, but he missed. The viewer spotted the mystery builder by the stone wall. They could tell it was the mystery builder by looking at its tail. When Steve and Blue went to go to the stone wall, the tail was gone. They spotted more footprints and followed the evidence. They followed and followed until they came upon 2 paths. Each path had footprints on it. So Steven decided that he and Blue could go one way, and if that doesn't work, they could go the other way. So they went one way. Then they heard some rustling. It was Gopher. Steve thought he must be the mystery builder. He and Blue went to check just to be sure. Gopher had the same footprints, but not the same tail. It was a totally different tail. So Gopher was not the mystery builder. Steve thought we solved it. Then he and Blue went to check out the other set of footprints. They go past the swing that was still swinging because somebody must have just pushed it, and they were back to where they started, the fort. Mr. Salt then comes and takes a picture of the mystery builder. The thing was, he got a little too close. That's when the viewer spotted the third clue, which is the picture that Mr. Salt took. That's also when Steve realized we had all 3 clues and it was time to sit in the thinking chair to solve the mystery. It was time to think. We were trying to figure out who the mystery builder could be, and our clues were footprints, a curvy skinny tail, and a picture. Steve thought the picture turned out to be the mystery builder's head. Then he thought, who has a head with pointy ears, a curvy skinny tail, and makes footprints? The viewer guessed correctly, a kitten. At that point, Steve realized we just figured out Blue's clues. After the celebratory song, he and Blue went to find the mystery builder kitten. They searched and searched until they found him. Steve introduced him, Blue, and us. The kitten was named, yes, Periwinkle. Then he invited Blue into the fort if she said the magic words, Perry, Pocus, Hocus, Crocus. Steve asked Periwinkle if the fort is where he lived. Periwinkle said that he just made the fort and actually moved in next door. In other words, Periwinkle, the mystery builder kitten, is our new next-door neighbor. Then Mr. Salt comes in and takes a picture of Periwinkle and Blue together in the fort. He gives Periwinkle the picture. After a fun day of solving a mystery and meeting a new neighbor, it was time to say so long, but sing just one more song. Now let's talk about the episode as a whole. I feel like kids can learn a lot if they want to learn about how to solve mysteries. This episode introduced Periwinkle in a very clever way. I mean, how else can you handle 30 minutes of introducing a new character? All in all, it's a good episode, and this was just the beginning. Now let's talk about Periwinkle misses his friend. This episode starts out with Steve outside and hearing someone going vroom, vroom. Blue heard it too. They follow the sound to the house next door where Periwinkle lives now. It turns out it was him making the vrooming sounds. He was playing bus driver and pretending his friend Plum, a purple bird, was with him. He showed a picture of Plum. Steve asked if Plum lives around here. Periwinkle said no, he lives too far away. You see, Periwinkle used to live in the city, but then he moved, and now he doesn't get to see Plum anymore. He missed him. He was sad. Steve wondered what he could do to feel better about missing his friend. That's when Blue wanted to play Blue's Clues, but first Steve had to get rid of the paw print. The paw print wanted to play Bus. Steve told it to back it up a bit and go. And so the game Blue's Clues has begun. The viewer spotted the first clue, which is crayons. After finding the first clue, he goes see what Periwinkle was doing. He was showing Blue a city he made, a city where he used to live. Then Blue skidooed into the city. Steve and Periwinkle did too. This was the first time Periwinkle ever skidooed somewhere. The city was huge. There were so many noises. Then Tractor enters the scene feeling lost. He wanted to find his friend, but he's never been to a city before. We decided to help. Periwinkle decided to help too because he used to live in a city. First, Tractor said that his friend lived near the tallest skyscraper. Periwinkle described that as a skyscraper as a really tall building. It's the tallest kind of building. So they find a skyscraper, looked both ways before they crossed the street, and they have arrived at the skyscraper. It was really tall, all right. Then Tractor said that his friend lived in the parking garage. Periwinkle described that a parking garage is a garage with cars parked inside. So they find the parking garage, looked both ways before they crossed the street, and they have arrived at the parking garage. Finally, Tractor said that his friend was a yellow taxi cab. Periwinkle described that a taxi cab is a yellow car that gives people rides but costs money. It has a sign with a light so people can find it. So they find the yellow taxi cab, and she takes Tractor a tour of the city. Then Steve, Blue, and Periwinkle skidooed back home. Periwinkle liked remembering some of the things he used to do in the city, but he still missed Plum. Steve goes inside, and that's when the viewer spotted the second clue, which is a folded piece of paper. After finding the second clue, it's mail time. Mailbox said he introduced himself to Periwinkle's mailbox. She was new in the neighborhood. In the letter, our friends had moved from a house to an apartment and showed all the similarities and differences. After saying goodbye, Periwinkle wondered where the skyscrapers were. He asked Steve if he sees any. Steve said no. You can only find skyscrapers in the city. Periwinkle missed his old playground. He showed a picture of him and Plum playing the skyscraper game. That's when you try to see the very top of the skyscraper. The problem was we couldn't play because there aren't any skyscrapers. But just because there aren't any skyscrapers doesn't mean you still can't play. You can find something else. Trees are as tall as skyscrapers. So Steve, Blue, and Periwinkle played the top of the treetop game. Then they tried to play honk and jump. Plum made up that game. Every time a car honks, you jump. The problem was there weren't any car honks, but there were bird sounds, so they played tweet and jump. Finally, they tried to play the bounce game. You try to bounce the ball as high as you can. The problem was the ball wouldn't bounce on the grass because it was too soft. But they found a rock to bounce on, so they played rock and roll because not only did the ball bounce high, but it rolled far. Now Periwinkle can play some of his old playground games in a new backyard kind of way. After helping Periwinkle, the viewer spotted the third clue, which is an envelope. That's when Steve realized we had all 3 clues and it was time to sit in the thinking chair. It was time to think. We were trying to figure out what Periwinkle could do to feel better about missing his friend. And our clues were crayons, a folded piece of paper, and an envelope. Steve thought Periwinkle could make a picture with the crayons and the paper. The paper was folded in half, so it could fit in the envelope. The viewer guessed correctly that Periwinkle could mail it. At that point, Steve realized we just figured out Blue's clues. After the celebratory song, Steve and Blue go to Periwinkle, who is playing a new version of the bounce game, and ask if he wanted to make a card and send it to Plum. It would help Plum remember Periwinkle and vice versa. Periwinkle drew everything that had happened today. Steve thought Plum was going to love that card. He and Periwinkle could be card friends. The mailbox comes to mail the card. After a fun day, it was time to say so long, but sing just one more song. Now let's talk about the episode as a whole. I feel like kids can learn a lot if they want to learn about what Periwinkle did and trying new things and stuff. It certainly shows that Steve and Blue really care about their new neighbor. All in all, it's a good episode. So yeah, that's Playtime with Periwinkle. If you would like to play again, just go back to the beginning of this episode. And remember, you can do anything that you want to do. Bye!